Well, first off, thank you very much for doing this. You're taking over a job that's gotten a lot of attention, so much attention so that your predecessor said it became a distraction for him. What do you plan to do differently so that it's less of a distraction and draws less criticism?
I think really what I'm bringing to this position and my priorities are sort of a renewed focus on our day-to-day operations, how we are operating at the very front end of the system so we can build trust and confidence with our stakeholders as well as community, and as well as how we're really working with our young people who are in our care, whether they are on probation or in a long-term facility, ensuring that we are equipping our frontline staff with everything they need to be able to do the job so that they can give kids what they need to be successful and reach their goals.
Why did you get into this? I mean, you're kid focused, right?
Yes.
Do you view the kids as your clients, your customers, or how do you?
Absolutely. I view the kids as our customers and clients, families, community, justice system stakeholders. We are all in this together. I've worked in this system or alongside the system for almost 18 years, starting out as an attorney at the Legal Aid Bureau here in Baltimore City, and then over to the Public Defender's Office. And then I worked here at the Department of Juvenile Services for 11 years. I left for the past 3 years and worked with the Roca Impact Institute, where I worked around the country coaching and equipping frontline staff with the tools they need to help young people change behaviors and heal from traumas over time. And now I'm back, and this is a dream job. I value our young people. I think our young people have opportunities to be successful, but we need to make sure that we're operating the system in alignment with our statutory framework, that we are equipping our frontline staff with what they need, and that in the end, we're getting kids what they need to be able to reach their goals and be successful. And we need to be that real partner in public safety.
So, having looked hard at the juvenile justice system over the last years and listened to all of the complaints and all that sort of thing, and I was talking about it with your colleague before we started this, is that there seems to be almost a disconnect between what the community, police, law enforcement, politicians expect of the juvenile justice system and what you guys expect the juvenile, and by you guys I mean people who have chosen to be in the field, what you guys expect of it. And you seem to be focused more on getting the kids back out, and the community wants the kids in. Is that a fair descriptor?
I think
of sometimes why you don't?
That disconnect sometimes is almost artificially created because the agency might not be transparent in the work that we're doing, or because we do have to maintain confidentiality for the young people we are working with. But I think where we are all on the same page is we want our young people to be successful, and we want our young people to get the things they need to be able to be successful. And everyone wants to feel safe in their communities. And I think that when we're working together and sort of working in partnership, whether it's with stakeholders, community, families, young people, we can come up with real solutions that will have a lasting impact that are sustainable over time. And we can start to build that trust and confidence back with communities so they understand what we're doing here and how we are helping young people reach their goals.
How do you balance the needs and desires and fears in the community versus what you want to achieve with these kids? And I'm going to answer that, and then I'll give you an example.
Well, I think the way we balance that is really having those conversations, being available to community so they understand how we are supporting young people, understand the continuum of programming and interventions and strategies that we have available to help our young people change their behaviors over time. And that's me making myself available, making my team available to be in community and to hear firsthand for how they are experiencing this system.
Okay, so over the last several years, there's been claims, accusations, and even evidence that the system has failed. I was speaking of a particular case. This kid's name, the street name was Baby K. His real name became public. He tried to shoot a kid on a school bus. The next day, he murdered a woman in the District of Columbia, was on the run, caught. And then you find out this whole thing that he had been in the system, put on probation for a crime of violence with a gun, timed out of probation because there was no room for him in the program. And he was just returned to the environment that created him. And he had no chance. Has the system, I mean, that's just one case that we know about. Has the system been failing, though, by leaning too far in favor of getting the kids back out?
I think we have way more successes than we have failures. So we have something to build upon, but those failures very much impact community, they impact families, they impact the young people. And we need to make sure that we are putting together the right type of strategies around our young people so that we can mitigate the potential failures. We want to see that our young people are being able to get what they need so that they can be safely in community. But when we can't serve young people safely in community, then we need to use our other tools, whether it be long-term treatment in a residential facility or even short-term detention.
A lot of criticism of the ankle bracelets. And in fact, I'm going to do a story this afternoon about an adult who was put on an ankle bracelet and then subsequently did a murder with the person. And the ankle bracelets have been viewed suspiciously by the community as not working, but a kind of a go-to thing for you. What are you going to do to protect the community from these kids that have been put on ankle bracelets that have done serious crimes? I understand maybe a contract has been canceled with a supplier as well recently. Are you making changes there?
So the first thing to sort of talk about is the adult system and how they use the ankle monitors or electronic monitoring is very different than how the Department of Juvenile Services uses electronic monitoring and how we carry out that program. We usually refer them to as alternatives to detention. And it's an important part of our continuum, but at the Department of Juvenile Services, we monitor the young people who are on electronic monitoring in-house. We don't use contracts. We have a contract technology provider, but our staff is doing the day-to-day monitoring. And it is something that we've dug into quite a bit because we want to be able to use this as an appropriate intervention, but we have to make sure we're using it in the right circumstances with the right young people. And one of the things that we just recently did was looking at the young people who are coming back in, who were on monitoring and then subsequently got rearrested. We have changed our policy on how we are responding to those incidents and using detention in a very short-term way until we can have that young person return to court, where we will ensure that the community detention monitor is in the courtroom with all the stakeholders to really talk about how that young person has progressed during their period of supervision. We're going to get some additional coaching and technical assistance to our community detention team who oversees all the electronic monitoring. And then we're going to prioritize when those young people do come back to our attention, connecting them to resources and community-based supports to enhance their supervision if the court determines to return them back to the community.
So you are making changes.
We're already making changes, yes. Mm-hmm.
And again, and I understand, I only find out about cases when things go bad.
Right.
So I don't know about the successes. And you can't tell me about the successes.
Right.
But I'm thinking of another one where a boy was out on an ankle bracelet and he was trying to do an armed robbery and the tables got turned on him and he was killed. And I talked to his grandparents. They had been looking after him. And they said, yeah, they put him on a bracelet, but he wasn't supervised. We really wanted him to be locked up. He needed to be where they could supervise him, and he wanted to be locked up because he knew he would go to school if he was locked up. What do you say to those anecdotes like that it's not safe for the community or even the kids oftentimes to be on the bracelets?
We really have to make sure we're making those decisions and recommendations to court effectively. So we're looking at how we're making those decisions because we want young people to be safe and successful in the community. And when they can't be safe and successful in the community, we have to use our other interventions. But to your point, we have way more successes than we do failures. So we can sort of laser focus on where we are not succeeding and make adjustments so that we can better support our young people in the community.
Your predecessor wrote an op-ed after he left, talking about the state's draconian laws, that he didn't want to participate in the charging these kids as adults. What's your philosophy about Maryland's law with regard to that? It has not changed, and there's still automatic adult charges levied.
My philosophy is my job here at the Department of Juvenile Services and ensure our operations are aligned with current Maryland statutory framework. So that means that we are day-to-day managing this system is consistent with our state laws. If our General Assembly chooses to change those state laws, then we will be ready for it. Okay.
Now, in advance of this, knowing that I am not fully well educated, I asked a couple of people. I asked a police chief. I asked a judge what they would ask. And a police chief, who I'm not going to name, he's saying, I'm thinking, ask if they'll explore a different approach to dealing with violent offenders, repeat offenders, and pattern crime offenders rather than releasing back to environments that have assisted in leading them to such behavior. is that still prudent? Simply, are they going to start holding some of these offenders for their safety, the overall community safety? And he says he doesn't think ankle monitors are very effective. That's a police chief.
And I understand that, again, we have more successes than we do failures, but we've already made changes to our operations to ensure that we are supporting our young people and public safety when we see young people being brought back to our attention after being placed on an ankle monitor.
Okay. And a judge. Mm-hmm. Couple pointed questions from him. What would you like to tell the over 200 citizens of Prince George's County who were carjacked by kids?
That we are, I will respond to that one first, if you don't mind, that we are looking at those cases. We are looking at those cases very strategically. There are things we can do to support our young people and community that we can do better. We can make sure that we have the right programming array, the right strategies, the right interventions around them. But we also have to be prepared to use our full continuum. And if we have to serve a young person out of home in a residential treatment facility for their safety and for community safety, we will do that.
Do you need more space? Do you need more capacity?
We are fine with capacity.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. From a judge, why can't we have sanctions? Well, this is a legal question, but they want to they want to go after the adults who encourage juveniles to commit crimes. They want to. Here we go. This is from the judge. Why can't we have sanctions that are swift and certain in Maryland that send a clear message that public wants accountability regardless of how old you are? Would you agree with that?
Look, the research agrees that we should be responding to young people in a swift and certain way, but we also have to respond in a way where we have a continuum of service interventions. Not every young person needs to use the highest level intervention that we have, and not every young person should be receiving the lowest level intervention. We have to assess each young person effectively so that we can put the right service array around that young person for their safety and for community safety, and to help them reach their goals and change their behaviors over time.
And here's from the judge. How will the DJS encourage the business community to employ juveniles so that they'll not turn to crime, support their family? How will DJS address the root cause of juvenile crime in our state? Is that part of your gig?
Absolutely. We have to understand why young people find themselves in situations that ultimately get them in trouble. And oftentimes we see young people find themselves in these situations because they're not able to meet their basic needs. They're not able to meet their basic needs related to safety. And so when we can identify that, then we can intervene more appropriately. But we are looking at building partnerships in community with other state agencies to create more opportunities for young people so that they can achieve economic mobility and hopefully disrupt future situations and acts of criminal activity.
Your predecessor said we exaggerate the amount of juvenile crime going on out there. Crime in general is crazy down, like statistics I've never seen before. I focus on the DC market more but I know what's going on in Baltimore and down there. What's trending with juvenile crime right now? I mean, what's trending with juvenile crime right now? How many contacts are you getting? How many referrals are you getting? Is it going down?
It is going down overall, and we can set up some time to get you the actual data and dig into all that. But the
community has been worried about juvenile crime.
Right.
We in our industry have been focused on juvenile crime. Juvenile crime has been a real thing. It continues, and DC's been having some troubles and all sorts of things like that. But the carjackings went crazy, and it was kids. What's the trend?
It is a real thing when you're a victim of crime. And I've spoken with victims, I've spoken with community, and what we need to do is just make sure that we have the right interventions. And that means partnerships, not just partnerships here in Maryland with our state's attorneys and our law enforcement partners and our other justice system stakeholders, but also partnerships with the district so that we can really work together on those young people who are crossing jurisdictional boundaries. Our young people aren't thinking, where am I in this particular moment when I find myself in a situation? We have to think as the adults to be able to see how we can work together.
Are we exaggerating the juvenile crime issue?
I don't think it feels like an exaggeration to anyone when they are a victim of crime, and we are very sensitive to that. We can always do better.
Okay. And will you? I mean, you're going to. Changes
Absolutely.
are happening. Do you see things that you needed to change right away?
I saw some things that we did want to change right away, specifically related to the utilization of electronic monitoring and how we respond when a young person is rearrested while on the monitor. But we're also each week looking at data. Each week we're going out into our residential facilities. We're talking with stakeholders. We're listening to see how others are experiencing the system so that we can make meaningful change that allows for long-term solutions.
Final question, open mic. Your opportunity to speak to the public that's been concerned about this issue.
I think what
You're the new person.
Yeah, what I think I'd like to just share is that I am here, this is a dream job for me. Working for our young people, working for our communities and families, working alongside our committed stakeholders, we have an opportunity here to do things a little differently and to really help our young people achieve all their goals that they have in mind and really support our families and be a real partner as it relates to community safety.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.